If the thumbnail attracted you and you know what that is, then you know exactly what that is. And we grew up at an absolutely fantastic time in professional wrestling. The big red censored X. This video, in my head, I don't have a name for it yet. I'm not sure what to call it, but this is going to be covering wrestling magazine covers of wrestlers that you guys had asked me to do a rise of that just really didn't have enough magazines behind them to make a full video. So rather than just make one 5-minute video, I figured we'll take a handful of the requests that were made for, say, Nick Bockwinkel, Superfly, Snuka. I off the top of my head, there's a bunch of them here. Roddy Piper. There's a bunch, about 15 or so that we're going to go through. Some that were hardly ever on a cover whatsoever, and it was a disgrace and barely had any coverage at all. We're going to cover those guys who should have gotten more respect in the magazines, and we're also going to do a short rise of each guy. So stay tuned. It's going to be an action-packed video with a lot of material here. So I'll try to get cooking on it. And if you recognize that red X in the thumbnail, you obviously know what that is. And if you don't know, that means you missed out on one fantastic era in professional wrestling. It was just awesome. Here is the man responsible for that big red X, big Blackjack Mulligan. And it used to be whenever there was blood, they would X it off, or a quote-unquote an extreme violent hold or some kind of death grip on television. They would put the X out and censor it. Really cool to see and experience that as a kid. You won't appreciate it now looking back on it, but back then it was like, one of the coolest things. And also pissed us off to no end because we couldn't see what was going on. They're blocking out the blood, and so. But if you want to see the blood, come to the Spectrum or come to the Garden, and you'll see the match. So it was a cool little feature on TV. And Blackjack, it happened with him a lot during his 1982 run in the WWF. Here's big old Blackjack's first magazine cover, and this is in July 71, just before forming with Blackjack Lanza in 1972 when they became the Blackjacks. Here's the Blackjacks on their first magazine cover together, Wrestling Monthly, May of 1972, and their manager, Bobby Heenan, partner Blackjack Lanza, known as the Blackjacks, and they would hold tag team championships everywhere they went, from the WWF to the WWA and all points in between the territories in the NWA. Next, Blackjack, speaking of WWA, down here with Dick the Bruiser. On the bottom, bloodied shot on April of 1973's issue, Blackjack and Bruiser. 1975, the two Blackjacks moved to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and capture the tag team titles in mid-1975. And they're on the cover of Fall's 1975 Wrestling World issue. Great close-up shot of the two Blackjacks. His next cover wouldn't be until 1977. Big Book of Wrestling, with Blackjack here, still forming the tag team at this point, getting ready to go solo and have a career in the Mid-Atlantic territory. And November 78, here now feuding with one-time partner, now enemy, Ric Flair. And these two were tag team partners, turned on each other, and also had battles for the U.S. title. Mulligan, who was a 4-time U.S. title holder, you would have thought he would have been on way more magazines than he did, and he just sadly wasn't. He was on a decent amount for a heel, but even when he turned face, wasn't on enough covers, if you ask me. I thought he should have been featured more. Flair versus Mulligan now, inside of a steel cage, July 1979, Sports Review. Taking on Ric Flair in 79, Flair and, Greg Valentine. Valentine and Flair had just split up from being tag team and tag team champions, and both were having a feud with Blackjack Mulligan. February of 1979 Sports Review. Greg Valentine, and we're going to do a little feature on Valentine too later on. He's another one that we're going to look at. One of my more favorite covers, if that's the proper word. March 79, Inside Wrestling, a very bloodied Harley Race world champion defending the title against Blackjack Mulligan, who is got the dreaded claw. Right around here is where you would get that red X if it was on regular television. Still in the Mid-Atlantic territory, taking on Paul Jones in September 79. Or it could be Florida. It could be one or the other here. I didn't actually look. September 79, Wrestling Guide. In the corner here, a very bloodied Blackjack Mulligan taking on Big John Studd. And that's a match I would have loved to have seen. Two giants going at it. Studd back and forth from heel to face at this point in 1979, 1980. Another guy who was not covered nearly enough, and we're going to discuss his magazines also in this video. April 1980 Sports Review, Mulligan taking on Blackjack in a Texas street fight. Sorry about the glare with that one. That was a pretty wrinkled bag. I got to change that bag out. Makes it look even worse under the light. August 82, Mulligan taking on Bob Backlund, now in the WWF. And this is when I first got to see Mulligan live, and it was against Backlund. And I'm sure it wasn't this particular match, but it was one of their traveled matches throughout the state. August 82, and Masked Superstars got Andre on the main shot. Best of the Wrestler, talking about the feud that was with Mulligan and Flair that continued on for quite a while down in the Mid-Atlantic. It was a well-known feud, and Mulligan had left the territory to come up to New York to be a heel, and he said he was he could not. He wanted to stay in the Carolinas. That's where he liked it the best, but he just could not beat the money up north, and swayed him away for sure. Summer of '88, Flair and Mulligan feud continued on Best of the Wrestler. Some call him Steve Muslin. Some call him Steve Travis. Takes on Blackjack Mulligan on Muslin's probably one or two covers that he was on. A couple of wrestling reviews I remember with Rick McGraw. And his career was cut kind of short. It's a shame. Mulligan taking on him in the WWF. And September of 1982's issue of The Wrestler. Finally, a big cover with Blackjack and during a match, taking on Andre the Giant. Of course, what a great feud that was for the Battle of the Big Men in the WWF. And this is October's issue of 82. Mulligan with the Claw, one of two of my favorite Mulligan covers. I was on several Mulligan covers I liked a lot, but the next two I really liked a lot. We had the Claw on Andre. The only way it could make it better if it was a good bloody one for me. December of 1982. I never seen these two face off, but I did, and it was in a six-man tag, but it was never these two guys alone. I was never able to catch that. Mulligan taken on Andre in November of 1983 in Sports Review. I remember first getting this and trying to figure out what this tattoo said on his arm, and none of us were able to figure it out right at the time. We were trying to figure out what those initials were, and it wasn't until the teacher told us. He believed it was the United States Marine Corps. I guess that's what it is. It kind of looks like it. At least that's what I thought for the last 40 years. Anyway, November of 83, Big Blackjack with the Claw on Andre. Moving up, 83, moving to Championship Wrestling from Florida, taking on Kevin Sullivan and Kevin Sullivan's Army with Mark Lewin. And this is December 83's issue of Wrestling All-Stars, as well as taking on Abdullah the Butcher. The Madman is terrorizing the Sunshine State, talking about Abdullah, and a very bloodied up, great looking cover, just as you would come to expect from the early All-Stars issues. I'm going to be doing an updated video on All Stars and Wrestling Scene. The few that I was missing, I ended up go ahead and completing them. And there's a couple of really good ones there that I'm kind of glad that I rebought. So I can do a start to finish on those so you can see every issue in order, because they are tricky with their dates because they never published them on the covers. April 84, Mulligan taking on the Masked Superstar, Inside Wrestling. Great magazine cover, great shot of Superstar's mask. And the gang's all here. All the guys he just fought one-on-one, they are now tag team partners back as the Japanese team of the Machines. It was the Giant Machine, the Super Machine, and the Big Machine, I think he was. This was Mulligan, this was the Masked Superstar, and of course that was Andre for the short-lived machine gimmick, which short-lived in America. That continued on in New York up until the 2000s with, I believe, another Super Machine. Not too long ago that ended. That gimmick stayed for a long time, and that guy would hold several titles in New Japan. May of 1987, Big Bloody Blackjack taking on Abdullah again. And that was it for Blackjack Mulligan. So it was a short little collection of issues that he was in. It's every one of them, every one that I could find. If I missed one, I don't think I did. I double and triple checked these. This video took me a long time to put together all these guys and their first issues. So like I said, we're going to take a look at Big John Studd. And before he was Big John Studd, he was Big Chuck O'Connor down here at the bottom. And his pants are very reminiscent of Killer Kowalski's, and that was his trainer. Him and Killer would go on to be WWF Tag Team Champions as the Executioners. But before that, in 1973, February's issue of Wrestling Review, he is still Chuck O'Connor, soon to be Big John Studd. Fast forward a couple years, Big John Studd now one half of the Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions with Ken Patera. And here is his first cover as Big John Studd. Not much of a photo, but better than getting shunned from all the other years that he was in, and several titles he's held up to this point, and absolutely no coverage for him. August of 79, The Ring. Again, goes back to our old pal The Ring for bringing us stuff that others didn't, go to the arenas that other places, other magazine companies didn't, and always had great stories in The Ring. In 79, they may have took, I don't know, this may have been this one and one other. I can't remember. Like 78 and 79 and 80, there was like one or two issues for the entire year. They were the mainstay for them was the boxing. He would appear on the cover of Madison Square Garden program to take on Andre in 1983. This is before a bout. Let me get the date. I'm not sure. April 25th, 1983. And he's made his way to the WWF, and he would have a pretty decent run with teaming up with Patera and Bundy, taking on Andre and Backlund in the singles. Had some classic battles with Andre. Here he is on the cover with Backlund going after the WWF title. And we would not see anything with him and Andre on the cover for the biggest feud that they had that lasted all those months, and absolutely no coverage on the magazines, and it's a shame. Victory Sports Series wrestling issue has a real tall looking shot of Big John Studd here, standing here off to the side of a bloody Kerry Von Erich, who was the NWA World Champ. And sadly, this will be the last shot of him, and probably the only shot of him posing on the cover. And there's a couple with Studd wrestling as he's taking on Paul Orndorff when Orndorff turned good after Mania 1 in 85. Ringside issue again with the Studd on the bottom. It's kind of hard to even really tell unless you're looking close. The cover is very close up and very busy. Sometimes the magazines can be so close up you can't see stuff. And sometimes when you've just pulled it back a little, that little bit really adds that much more to the photo. And Ringside was known for that. All Stars, Scene, they all did that up close shots a little bit too much sometimes. And that was a wrap for Big John Studd. Sad, right? And a guy you figure was such an icon in the WWF, who's held title after title and territory after territory. And man, he had less than 5 magazine covers as John Studd. And it's a shame that he didn't get more coverage. Now we're going to go to one of the rise ofs, and this is a smaller rise of than one of our normal ones, but it's for Nick Bockwinkel. Nick Bockwinkel is first magazine cover appearing with Ray the Crippler Stevens as the AWA Tag Team Champions of the World on August of 1972. And his first cover is a belt cover, which is cool. And they would go back and forth with those titles several times throughout the years before capturing the world title in 75 and be staying the mainstay of that. Actually, these don't even belong here. I don't know why they're here. Sorry. You know what? I mean, I wasn't going to show it because there was no magazines, but they were here by accident. Sorry. And I can't edit because everything's done in one take. So let's look at the Moondogs. Probably the most snubbed. They have absolutely no magazine coverage at all. Multiple-time tag team champions, not talking about Moondog Maine, but King and Rex here. And this is a 1981 program from the Boston Garden when they are defending their titles. And they had absolutely, thanks bud, beat it, no coverage whatsoever. And if you're a Moondog fan, it's rough. Not saying they had many, but there is some. And they got great when they went to Memphis. I love that setup of the Moondogs when they were there. There must have been 5 or 6 different ones throughout almost into the 90s, but they were still entertaining. They bled buckets. If you really like the Moondogs, but there are some places like eBay and this and that sell bootleg best ofs. Check out the Moondogs, especially when they go to the Memphis territory. Great stuff. I'm not sure if Rex was there. I know Spot was there. I believe Rex was there for a short time. And then a couple other ones that they added onto it. This is a Major League magazine, very similar to the program, but this is a slash magazine type and not quite, an actual magazine, but it's not a program for an event. This would be your only magazine cover with the Moondogs, Rex and King. Spot was never on a magazine cover, so you'll never see Spot on one. August of 81's The Ring Wrestling, and they are tag team champions at the time, and they don't show them with the titles, which is also a shame. King is getting cross-bodied in the Madison Square Garden against Mil Mascaras in August 81's issue. And sadly to report, especially sad for me because I liked the team. I thought that was a great gimmick. And this is the end of the Moondogs. And I wasn't going to show them, like I said. I just didn't take it out. I pulled out so much because this video would have been 7 hours. So I could make it actually a part 2 to it, but there was just so many pieces. I was like, I can't have all this. It's too much. So back to Nick Bockwinkel. Okay, so that was his first cover with Ray Stevens. And then August of 72. And here is his next cover, August 1975. And now he's holding up with his partner, the bloody Ray Stevens. They're not fighting here. I believe they were taking on Gagne and the Bruiser for that. Here he is again against Billy Robinson in September 1974. Early shot of Bockwinkel just before becoming world champion on Big Book of Wrestling. Tag Team of the Year, 1974, Bockwinkel and Stevens. 1973 Tag Team of the Year, and 1974's issue. Bockwinkel again now. He has become world champion, and here he is in 75. Is this 75? Yeah. This is 171. This might be December 75. Nick Bockwinkel's on the cover of the AWA edition magazine. It's not a program, but it's a thin one like that. These are getting harder and harder to find, and they're going up in price too. All these, the AWA versions, the wrestling news versions of the news, AWA East, NWA West, that kind of shit. Those issues are going up a lot. I couldn't believe some of the prices they were charging for some of those. But these suckers are running between $40 to $75 now. It's a shame. And Nick, now the world champion, defeating Vern Gagne, and his first magazine cover as the world champion with the other company, the other world champions, Bruno's title of the WWF, Terry Funk, NWA World, and Nick Bockwinkel featured, but he has no belt. Come on. You couldn't have got him with the belt. You have all the other guys, and every one of these championship issues always show the champion with the belt. This is like the only one that doesn't have it, and he's getting snubbed without showing the belt, which is pretty shitty. But it's almost like it was on purpose. AWA always kind of took a back seat to the media and the magazines, and it's a shame because they had some great stuff, and it's they were shunned a lot, and I don't like it at all, especially with Bockwinkel, because he should have been on a lot more covers than he was, and he should have gotten a lot more respect than he did. Just trying to keep this glare, because I know it's going to start getting worse now, because as I move in with these, so bear with me, guys. I'm going to try to hold them out. Nick is back again on one of those stupid repeated covers as the other Wrestling Guide issue that we looked at, or whatever it was. Yeah, Guide. And this is September 79's issue with Bockwinkel and Stevens. And finally, Nick on the cover, posing in a sports review, Pro Wrestling Illustrated type pose. But it's a little bit blurred. It's a little bit under focused, if you want to be critical, because this is how Wrestling Review was. It's a shame they didn't put their best effort forward when they when Stanley Weston sold the company, and even the sizes were cut shorter up here, which was kind of annoying also. But nonetheless, Nick's on the cover with the title, and it's a great looking shot. Could have been a lot better, but it's better than what we've gotten so far. Yearbook 1977, and this has got a great shot of all three champions now: Superstar, Harley, and Nick. So Nick, you're going to take notice as these different champions. There's going to be a lot of faces changing, and Nick will be a mainstay. Another reason that annoys me, because the guy would go all these years never losing the title and still not getting much talk about, and it's just a shame. Nick's on the corner here, but this is an excellent magazine if you're an AWA fan, history fan. It tells you about how it started, when Vern formed it, and all the champions that held the title, as well as the Omaha title, which was also used as the AWA World title. It's very screwy. I don't know, why he did that. There's little to no explanation in this issue, but they show you the guys who held the Omaha version of that belt, like the Crusher and even Vern himself. Bockwinkel never did, though. So from this point out, you'll just see nothing but the big round belt that he always held. But this is great history, and the WWF one is also excellent if you like knowing the history and the champions and the dates of stuff like that, things that I really like a lot. That's a great one to grab, and sometimes that's also over $50 for that, which is horrible. See if you can find a cheap one. Winter of 79, Nick's got a small corner shot. Superstar and Putski get the main page on the 78 annual. Great looking magazine cover with the two world champions, Bockwinkel and Race, talking about how they're plotting to get rid of Backlund. And this is February 1979, and just a super shot. Moolah, actually, just a tip. Moolah is off to the side waiting. She's going to go in and do a three champion photo right after that. And then they do a couple other separates all from that same shoot. If you've ever seen that picture, it's all during that same time period. Also that same day, actually. March 79, Bockwinkel defending the title against Dusty Rhodes. So Dusty Rhodes comes up from Florida as the Florida champion and the main face in the NWA, and Florida moves up to the WWF, has a feud with Superstar Graham for 2 years, which actually began in Florida for the Florida title. And now Dusty is making his way to the AWA. He's really making his rounds at least last 2 years, going after a title somewhere from somebody. March 79, Dusty taking on Nick Bockwinkel. Another good cover. Dusty and Lewin in the bull rope match. Nick Bockwinkel posing with the world title again. Small shot, but he's still on there. He's getting the small shots. Is it kind of it's all right. It's better than nothing. But world champ should have a picture or more. Nick and Dusty during the match we just showed, and this is a Big Book of Wrestling, summer of 1979. Also Steamboat and Flair continuing their age-old battle. Bockwinkel now taking on WWF's champion Bob Backlund, in a match that was never talked about for a title versus title, and that's really a shame. They should have definitely had a little more hype to this, at least have two champions on the cover with the belts. You kind of do in the next issue here, and this really should have been your cover, having those two to feed that match and to give it a little more publicity, but it never happened. November 79's issue of the rings. This is also the last issue of the rings before they sold to the new company. This is the very last one. And then January of 80 would start 4 issues of the ring under the new owners, and no longer would it be known as the ring. And it's already made the name change. I'm just looking for one, just real quickly here. You'll see the difference. You see this is the rings with an S, and this is the ring with no S. So you see the difference. So that can be tricky sometimes, and you forget when you go to a search bar looking for a certain issue. Make sure it's a rings issue, not a ring. Rings with an S start at 1980 up, and there's no S from 79 to 62. All right, all 3 champs, great looking cover, very capturing that 70s look in that shot. Always like that pick. Wrestling World picking up Bockwinkel and Backlund once again on the cover on annual 1979 Wrestling World. And again, in 79, Wrestling World, I think, had 2 issues. They had a yearbook and an annual. That was it. 1980, great looking bloody shot of Nick as the world champion with the belt. Trying to get that glare away. What a bloody shot. What a great looking shot that is. Actually, all 3 world champions, Harley and Backlund, also came out in January's issues with a very bloody belt shot around this time. All of them were, I think, Best of the Wrestler, may have been Inside Wrestling. Great looking shot of Nick bloodied up after the match. That wasn't with against Backlund, I don't think, though. And here is Nick now facing yet his next set of champions, and he's still champion. Backlund, WWF, Dusty, NWA, and Nick. And I believe this is going to be the last time we see this brown leather on the belt. So we had Nick with Harley and Superstar, and he's also seen Bruno and Terry Funk go by. And Nick is still standing strong as the world champion, going on 6 years now at this point. Nick taking on former WWF world champion at this time, later to be Intercontinental champion Pedro Morales in 1981. Nick continuing battling with Dusty Rhodes, Inside Wrestling, April of 1982. And also a shot of Blackjack Mulligan here that we didn't show. I was saving it for this video. And that's Blackjack Mulligan Jr., also known as Barry Windham. So Blackjack is on another issue in 82. April, just before, I remember reading the article, Barry was saying, I'm mad at my father for changing his ways and becoming evil and going up north, and he's terrorizing people up there. It was a funny article when they talked about his dad turning heel and moving on and taking on the guys in the Northeast. Wildfire Tommy Rich, August of 1982, on the cover of The Wrestler. Great shot. Always like that cover. Best of the Wrestler again with Backlund. You'll see it a lot now. They were featured several times on several different issues, but there really wasn't a lot of talk about it like it was for, say, Superstar versus Race. About as much coverage as Flair and Backlund had gotten. Once again now, new world champion Harley Race drops the title. I'm sorry, Dusty Rhodes drops the title to Ric Flair, and here is Nick still standing strong with yet his next set of champions. Still there. AWA has not been a revolving door. September of 82. Nick now on the cover. Actually, this other issue would be his first time with him with that black leather here. You can't see it that well. See it a little bit better here. Just changed that tan for the black. Most people probably wouldn't even have picked up on it. Just little things like that I always noticed and always caught my eye. Nick would lose the title shortly to Otto Vons in February of 1983's issue of The Wrestler. This is the coverage of Nick winning the title back from Otto. And hardly anything mentioned about Otto taking the title. A little bit of coverage inside the magazine. Nick on the cover of the rings, and also on the bottom, Buddy Rogers makes his return in the WWF. We're going to discuss that a little bit later on when we get to the Superfly. Nick on the bottom. Actually, this was discussing Bockwinkel's taking the title back from Otto. This is more of coverage in this issue with him, and that's just him posing with the title again for his second reign. Here he is now featured with Bobby the Brain on the cover of Wrestling Review, January of '83. Taking on Hulk Hogan in the AWA, Hogan and Bockwinkel, September '83. And again, the Blackjacks now are back and being a loving family again, now known as Barry Windham. All is forgiven up north, and they start a little duo in Florida, the Windhams do. Always like this magazine cover too. Bockwinkel on the cover of January of '84 Sports Review, and also a match from Puerto Rico with Andre and Abdullah. Nick is on the top at 1984 Wrestling USA, taking on a soon-to-be champ. I can't get my hand behind that. Soon-to-be champion Rick Martel. Actually, Rick Martel captures world title, finally AWA champion. Okay, so this is during, this had to have been older because he didn't beat Bockwinkel for the title. He beat Jumbo Tsuruta. So I thought he got that in '85 too. Man, I need to start doing my homework. Bockwinkel lost the title in the issue before that, apparently. Here he is again on one of those very thin, maybe 2 pages, maybe just a gatefold, no pages. I don't remember. Major League Wrestling. And again, them stupid issues are going for ridiculous money. Some of these guys are. AWA issue number 302. Bockwinkel and Martel here again. How the AWA will change Rick Martel. And December of '84's issue of Sports Review has got Bockwinkel on the ground holding his head. Nick taking on Jumping Jim Brunzell in the AWA. Brunzell soon to be heading his way to the WWF. Wrestling Power, September of '86, got Bockwinkel and Martel again. It really makes it look like they were feuding a lot, but they really weren't. Nick went to the announcer's table for a little while, stopped wrestling for a bit. Sergeant Slaughter came to the territory. Things got shaken up a little bit, and then Hansen took the title, and then Nick came back to take the title back from Hansen. So none of that's talked about. So Hansen takes the title. I was just jabbing for a minute, talking for a second. I realized this is almost it for him. He would win the title back, hardly any coverage on a cover. There was some issues talked about it in the magazines, but as far as a cover goes for Nick winning it back from Hansen, no, there's nothing. Let's see, April of 1987, Wrestling Fury. And there was that whole thing with, Stan not returning the title and ran it over with his car and mailed it back to Vern, and he wouldn't go into it too deep. I was kind of curious about that too. June of '87, this will be Nick's last title cover for him, and it's a nice way to go out and end his career for June of '87's big double action wrestling. And I don't have any autographed magazines in Nick, but I do have an 8x10. I actually won this in a raffle, and I've had this for a little while. I would love to have gotten a magazine signed by Nick, but I just never did, never had the opportunity to. But it's just a cool looking shot with Nick, and that was a rise and the ending of Nick, sort of. I'm kind of cutting them short. I got one left, but this is taking us into the next segue anyway. We're going to take a look at somebody who was really shunned by the magazines, and you would not think he would be. Jerry the King Lawler out of Memphis. And man, I mean, he's a guy who was always in your head. You always knew about him, and I've never seen him wrestle until he faced off with the Road Warriors in like '84 or '85 on TV. I'd never seen him anywhere, and I really didn't know the politics and the ins and outs of things when you're a kid and a teenager, so you really didn't know that that was his territory where he was, and what a powerful territory that was. I think that ran all the way to like 2000, I believe. It was like one of the last territories to fall out. But Jerry the King would be going after Bockwinkel's AWA heavyweight title in '77, and he is the Southern heavyweight champion from the USWA, Memphis wrestling territory, Jerry the King. You would think he would be on a ton of magazine covers, and he just simply was not. This is his first. He was nothing with him on the Western magazines up until the 80s. I was just completely shocked that he was not on more, especially for a name like he carries and the fan base that he's had, even as a heel. I was just shocked. This is my signed copy of Jerry the King Wrestling Review, May of 1988, and it's a cool looking shot of him with the crown. Same exact photo used again for the next issue, just a couple issues away, on issue 1. What is it? There's not even a date on it. 110. I have to go inside and look. I hate it when they did this to these. This is towards the end. It ends at 123 or 24. So there's only like another year's worth of magazines, and then Wrestling Review would fold. He is on a cover in 1984 March of the Rings. One of your last looks at the Crusher too. There after they dropped the tag team titles to the Road Warriors. And Jerry on the cover with Nick Bockwinkel. They've had, quite the feud back and forth over the years in the 70s and early 80s, August of 83 of Inside Wrestling. His first cover of PWI. Finally getting a little respect from the Stanley Weston After Mags here. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, August of 84. Good looking shot of the King with that king crowned beard he's got going on. And this would be the match, or one of the matches, that I first remember seeing him in a tag team match. I was like, all these years of hearing about the guy, I never got a chance to see him until cable. And even then it was slim to none. It was when they were doing the joint venture with the Pro Wrestling USA. It was AWA, NWA's TV for a short time, and Memphis actually kicked it off. So that was my only time. And then after that, years would go by, and I still wouldn't see a match with Jerry Lawler. So very little exposure he's had on nationwide TV and the magazines, but the guy pulls a name like he did. It was just incredible. He's got some diehard serious fans down there in the Delta region for sure. Double Action Wrestling, Jerry the Lawler shaves his head. And here he is getting his head shaved. Skipping a bunch of years now, up to 1989. He would finally win the AWA World title and have one of the 3 Alphabet Championships under his wing, and he would defeated Kurt Hennig for this title, and here he is now, the champions. How they used to do it in the 70s and early part of the 80s, down in the 90s, they were just going to throw your champions up there, and it doesn't stand out like it used to. It doesn't look the same flair as your NWA. The Ultimate Idiot was I guess he was the Intercontinental, while Savage was the WWF. Yep, Jerry the King, first cover as world champion in the AWA. He would have a title versus Kerry Von Erich for the old WCCW Texas Heavyweight Championship belt, known now as World Class Association World Champion, WCWA. They had a bunch of names for it down in Texas. It's Kerry Von Erich, and it's their version of the world title on a slowly dying companies. Both AWA and Texas are both hurting at this point. And Memphis was also getting involved at this point with the USWA. It was, if all 3 were able to stick together and work together, they still would have gotten crushed. But December of 1988, talking about the title versus title coming up in Super Clash 3. And another one talking about it, Year in Pictures, talking about Lawler and Von Erich finally clashing. And here's the match, very small. It was a very bloody bout, and main shot gets Savage and Hogan on the wrestler, April of '89, and Jerry the King Lawler would become the 3-time heavyweight champion here. Trying to get that picture in there better for you. great shot of Jerry. That should have been a cover of a PWI, if you ask me, rather than being off in the corner like that. He's the USWA champ, AWA champ, and WCWA world champion, all three. And he would find his way to get stripped out of the two of them. Somehow something would happen with some political crap, and companies would fall apart, move on, and inner fighting, can't get along. Everyone's kind of sinking on their own sinking ship there. Didn't really matter which direction they pulled. All three were heading down. Spring of '89. It's got Jerry again saying, "I'm the best. I've beaten Flair and I've beaten Savage, and now I'm the world champion of the AWA." And that would be Jerry's last magazine cover. Not a lot for Jerry the King Lawler. His son probably had more covers than he did. Let's take a look at somebody else. And I was asked to do a Rise of, and was excited to do it, but just was not enough magazines to do a big one. Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper, first magazine cover wasn't for a little while from his debut. This is his first Madison Square Garden debut, January 22nd, 1979, and he would take on Frankie Williams, of all people, for his first opponent in New York. Frankie Williams, the guy who would beat up in the first couple Piper's pits, as wondering why he was interviewing him and asking him questions, and we come to find out why after he beat the shit out of him. What a great episode that one was. Nothing with him on the magazines yet, and he's back at the Garden several months later, back in April now, and he's, I forgot who he was taking on. Maybe Pete Sanchez, somebody. It was somebody on the lower end. It wasn't really anyone with, other than a TV talent enhancement guy, same kind of quality guy. April 30th of '79, Piper made his second and last return to New York for a number of years, and he would be coming back as an icon. Piper moving on to the Mid-Atlantic area, the Georgia area, and taking on Roddy Piper in a feud down there that would last several months. April '81, young Ric Flair and a young Roddy Piper. Piper's second magazine cover against the Masked Superstar at the bottom here in June of '81. Piper in a headlock with Ricky Steamboat. You'd never know it was him, but it is, and he just won the U.S. title. He's the U.S. champion at this point. You figured you'd have him on the cover with the U.S. championship. Instead, you got Steamboat with a horrendous mustache, Piper in a headlock. Piper getting armbarred on his first Pro Wrestling Illustrated cover, October of '81, by Dusty Rhodes. Piper would start his feud with Wildfire Tommy Rich in Georgia, and a good bloody war he would have with Wildfire. Wildfire and Piper once again on October of '82's issue of Inside Wrestling. Piper again. Roddy Piper regains the Mid-Atlantic title, and he is the Mid-Atlantic champion. And again, no shots with him on the cover as champion yet. Starting to make his rounds a little bit more, starting to pick up a little bit, not a whole lot. But November, at the end of '82, beginning of '83, he'll start coming around a little bit more. Here's your first look at Hacksaw Butch Reed. We're going to look at Butch Reed later on too, but this is an early shot of Butch. And Tommy Rich also taking on Piper. And this is a very beat up copy of mine. There's glare, so I don't show how many wrinkles. I got to upgrade this sucker. March of 1983. Again with Tommy Rich on Wrestling's Main Event. Also Superfly, Jimmy Snuka taking on Captain Lou, and we're going to get into that saga in just a few moments. Roddy Piper now with a great looking cover of him with the kilt and the bagpipes, June of 1983, of Sports Review. Roddy Piper begins his war with Greg the Hammer Valentine, and we're all familiar with that Starrcade bout, the return bout after Piper getting his ear ripped off and such. Piper takes the title from Valentine Again, no coverage of it on an American issue. You would have to get a Lebanese copy of the Lebanese Wrestling World issue. And I have a bunch of these. I haven't really shown too many of them. Maybe one day I will. But I pulled this one because it's the only, and you can't tell, but he's holding the title he just won from Valentine, the U.S. title right here. And he's holding it up, and he's getting ready to defend this title. This is the match the ear gets ripped off of. So this was, I think, a house show anyway, and it would be hard. Many magazines would be picking up on that. Really surprised about the Lebanese, Egyptian, Islamic issues, Arabic issues, picking it up. WWF was big there. They loved it, still love it. And their magazines are pretty cool, too. Great shot, though. It's too bad it's not tilted a little bit. You get a better shot of the belt, but nonetheless, it's Roddy Piper with his first magazine cover as champion. Inside Wrestling Summer of '83, and here's Roddy with the ear getting ripped off. He loses the title to Valentine. This is all covered as Inside Wrestling's issue and setting up for a Starrcade return. Roddy Piper on a great-looking PWI cover, August of 1983. Kind of speaks for himself there, right here. A great-looking shot. Followed up by one of the probably worst magazine covers ever, Piper taking on Flair on Official Wrestling, which was the absolute lowest of the low budget you could get. Official Wrestling was the worst, only lasted a handful of issues, 83 to end of 84. And this is one of the terrible ones. You wouldn't even know who it was unless you read real close behind the blurred photos of two iconic guys in the corner, bloodied up, and it could have been a great cover, and it's just another missed opportunity. Let's see. Piper on the cover of Ringside, and he's getting ready to feud with the Superfly, which we're going to get into. But right now, he's dealing with Hulk Hogan. This is the cover of July 85's issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Piper and Hogan getting ready to square off in the war to settle the score on MTV. That's what kicked it all off with Mr. T, WrestleMania, and we all know the history. For some of us, that was the end of our history. It went to shit. And I'm trying to keep you guys straight here. Piper on a pretty cool looking cover here of Inside Wrestling, and this is September of '85's issue. Just trying to do my best to keep this stupid glare out of this. But like, if I didn't have the plastic bags on them, you'd be able to see them a lot better. But there's no way that's happening. Wrestling Scene covering WrestleMania between Hogan and Piper. Great shot of Piper on the cover of All-Star Wrestling Heroes and Villains. There's a difference. There's Wrestling All-Stars 1 through 15. And you'll see the volume 1, 2, 3. And there's Wrestling All-Stars Heroes and Villains. Wrestling All-Stars ended, and it became Heroes and Villains. And they start their own numbering system. It goes from 1 to 70 or whatever the hell. So if you're a collector of these, the originals in '82 started Wrestling All-Stars. 15 issues. The 16th issue turned to Wrestling Heroes and Villains, back to number 1 again, and then it started the numbering system. So if anyone's confused or you're looking for numbers that don't make sense, that's why. And I'll just, like I said, I'll discuss that on a new video that I'll make down the road. Stupid thing keeps drifting off here. Piper again on Ringside with Paul Orndorff, and they were on several ringsides together during their feud as they split up after WrestleMania. Here he is against Jack Briscoe, an older pick from most likely the Georgia territory. Piper on December of '86, and is Piper cleaning up his act? Yes, Piper turns good guy, goes off to make some movies, and comes back. The Rowdy Scott turns good, January of 1987, and good looking shot of Piper on PWI, donning the cover of Main Event Wrestling of March of '87. Back with Orndorff again on Ringside. Jumped up a couple years to November '89. He's back on another cover, taking on Macho Man, and this is the Wrestler in November. Sports Review, February 1990, coming to an end for the Hot Rod. He has been on several more covers. They were just real small. like corner shots. I try to get the ones where he dominated the cover mostly. In March of '91, he's looking after the Warrior, Ultimate Warrior. Here he is with Flair. February of 1992, when Flair made a run in the WWF for the WWF title. And that would be the end of Hot Rod until the unthinkable, joining WCW and coming back for the NWO feud. And here is January 97, back with his arch enemy Hulk Hogan. Now the reversal of the roles. Hogan's bad, Piper's good. And Piper and Hogan would continue on for just a few. Wrestling Superstars on a terrible magazine, really small. This is ridiculous. The size, the shape, the feel of it, awful. How anyone can waste their money on this such junk. It's really, it's terrible. If it wasn't for Hogan and Piper on the cover, this would not be in here. But wrestlers, superstars, and wrestling all-stars, and wrestling scene are the owners of this TV wrestlers. They kept it good, they kept it big, and it's the same size, and with the glossy pages in the same time period, too, 97. So these magazines were way better than the when Stanley Weston sold the company. They put out a halfway decent cover here between Hogan and Piper on The Wrestler, May of 97. And this would be Hot Rod's last magazine cover, sad to say. And it was a great looking one for the Hot Rod. Let's take a look at Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And I was asked to do a Rise Up Superfly. He's on quite a few, and we have quite a few good ones. So his first issue was in February of 1980, and he's taken on Ric Flair when they battled for the U.S. title. Snuka would hold that U.S. title down in the Mid-Atlantic area. His next cover was on March of 81. Real savage looking here, real dark tan, crazy beard and crazy hair rather with a goatee, and just looking like an animal. On his way to the Mid-Atlantic, out of his Mid-Atlantic rather, to the WWF real soon. He's finishing up his feud end of 81, 82 with Ric Flair on the cover of Full 82's Wrestling World. Another great shot, great shot of Superfly with the beard. Always liked him when he had the beard. Here is Superfly just before he lost the Mid-Atlantic U.S. Heavyweight Championship. Good looking shot. Too bad it wasn't a bigger shot on the cover. It would have been great. June of 82 of the Superfly. And welcome to the WWF Superfly, where he tried like hell to be a heel, and it just was not working. Us fans, I'll count myself in that because I've seen him live many times as a bad guy and cheered for him. We weren't having it, man. Superfly was awesome. He was doing shit we never seen before, flying around like he did. I remember he was the first person I've ever seen fly outside the ring from clear the top ropes all the way to the outside of the ring. Never seen anything like that. Again, I'm only 12 years old, and I've only been exposed to the WWF, so I wouldn't see that anywhere else. But to us, it was like the greatest thing in the world. And what a fantastic cover. I think I have this autograph on the back. Yeah, I have an autograph 8x10 of that same thing on the back. This is August 82, Superfly taking on Bobby Backlund for the title. The wrestler picked up that feud. It continued on, ended up in a cage. Great bouts. Too bad Superfly didn't get a title when he was in the WWF, but if there was ever a person who didn't need one, he really didn't need one. He was super hot, didn't need the title, but it would have been great to have him beat Morocco. October 82 against Backlund. I've seen this match. I don't know if that's this particular one, but I've seen these two live, Superfly and Ivan Putski, in a good battle of the Muscle Men in the Wrestler November of 1982. Superfly takes on Pedro Morales. I remember being at the Spectrum for his first match at the Spectrum, and it was against Pedro. I'm sure this wasn't from that show. I'm trying to judge by the ropes, and it's not the Gardens ropes. I don't know where that is, honestly. December 1982, the Wrestler and Pedro defending the title against Superfly just before he's about to turn face coming up soon. Here is the cage match coverage versus Backlund for their third and final bout, and December of '82. I'm sure they had cage matches other places. I'm sure they just didn't do it at one spot. But the coverage, I believe, for the Garden is in this issue here, and a couple of color photos too. I know it's black and white with him standing on the cage. It's too bad they didn't get that in color. Superfly and Captain Louis Albano on the cover of January '83. Always dug this cover a lot. The Japanese came really close. I'm going to try to fit this in this magazine of him, Superfly and Captain Lou. Great looking shot of these two on this magazine newspaper. Sorry, I know I'm killing you, but cool looking shot, man. Always liked it when he had Captain Lou, and I always liked it when Superfly acted crazy like that. This is on the cover of Fight Weekly, it's called right here, Fight Weekly magazine, and Superfly and Captain Lou. I got that hanging on the other side of my wall that I haven't really shown very often. That's where I have all my newspapers and wrestling newspapers from the Los Angeles territory and also Japan. I got a bunch from Japan, newspaper-wise. America never had nothing. I remember like the New York Daily News would have a little column written up after the Garden shows and reading that. But by then I already knew the results because I was here and watched it already mostly. This isn't Superfly, but it falls under the same category. The Samoans, for being a tag team like they were since 1973 and always staying together for as long as they did, holding titles everywhere they went. They never, ever had any magazine coverage. And this is just one of my signed copies that it kind of reminded me of this issue. These two kind of went hand in hand because they came out at the same time. This was January's issue and this was May's issue. Just always liked that. And I figured I'd just show two more because that's all they were on. The Samoans here as World Tag Team Champions in 1980 with Captain Lou with the blue World Championship belts, and also when they held the red World Tag Team belts in '83. So just showing a little love to the Samoans because they felt all fit in that same kind of category and family for that matter. But they never got enough coverage, if you ask me. They should have been featured a lot more. Superfly would get his neck broken and a heel turned to face after Ray the Crippler Stevens sneak attacked him on national television wrestling scene, and we cover that in a couple other videos. We talk about this issue quite a bit, and it's very nostalgic for me, of course. One of my favorites. These next few are all my favorite ones with Superfly. February '83, Superfly is now a good guy and taking on Captain Lou Albano. Bloody shot of Superfly looking like he has a broken neck. Snuka savaged by Albano. It's a miracle to still be alive on Wrestling Superstars 1983. Superfly taking on Captain Lou. And this is another one of my signed issues from Wrestling Scene. And I believe, yep, this was the night I was there. I have actually two programs. So this is the program with my ticket stub from that night. It's also Superstar Graham taking on Backlund in the return bout, and Snuka taking on Albano. Great looking shot, great cover, and that is my Garden seat ticket stub. That's what they looked like back then. I'm trying to get a better shot, but it's horrible. But that's it. This is a little piece that you save it. Doesn't say shit on it, but a half wrestling on the side and my seat number. Section J, row 3, seat 4. Where that is, I couldn't tell you because set in some different places there. It's hard to remember all of it. Superfly now with his new manager, Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and they are on the cover of Sports Review. Snuka takes on a manager. Snuka with Adrian Adonis, and we're going to talk about Adrian Adonis in a minute too. The rings talking about Superfly with a great full cover shot of Superfly. Superfly on the cover of Madison Square Garden program with his new manager, discussing his new manager and where they go from there. This is a special extra program from the Spectrum. This is from Saturday, March 19th, and it's all Superfly and Buddy Rogers section inside on top of the other program that they sold that month with the other lineup sheets in it. So there was two that month, and I got in both of them. This was the one for Superfly, talking about him turning, face and all that kind of stuff. And the build up to Buddy Rogers coming out of retirement to take on Captain Lou and Stevens and Morocco and whatever the hell. There was a bunch of those, and Arnold Skolin had gotten involved. And the night Backlund lost the title, Rogers was supposed to appear on that card too, but something happened and they didn't, and switched it out, I believe, with Skolin. But Rogers out of retirement after so many years, teaming up with the Superfly, and all that's covered in this July issue of 1983. That was the biggest talk of the town when I was a kid. Buddy Rogers coming back and having that match at the Garden. It never happened. I'm sorry, not at the Garden, at the Spectrum. It never happened at the Garden. And here is a Spectrum event program from that match of Buddy Rogers coming out of retirement. Kind of looked like the other program, but just a little bit different. Just to put it back, I think it was Thanksgiving night, right? Yeah, so actually it's this week's Thanksgiving, so yeah, it was a long time ago. November 25th, the Spectrum, Thursday night. Yep, that was the only time that they had it during a week. It was always like a Friday night, and they had it on Thanksgiving night of all nights. April 1983, Superfly taking on Captain Lou. Inside Wrestling, the feud continues. Superfly's PWI cover, May of 83. Good looking shot, very jacked up and muscled up. Superfly, Backlund, and Superfly. Should Superfly receive a shot at Backlund's title now that he's a good guy? And this is also my signed copy by Superfly and Bob. Great looking magazine cover from the Garden. He wouldn't take on Backlund, but he would go after the title for Magnificent Morocco. Another guy who didn't get very many magazine covers was the Magnificent one. And it's just, I'm showing this now because he really didn't get much talk, and it's his only belt shot of him as champion, as he would take on Snuka. And this, I thought I had a poster with it now. This would be the beginning of his feud with Magnificent Morocco. This is also issue number 1 for Victory Magazine. Victory Sports from Stanley Weston forced them to shut this magazine down because of the name change and copyright infringement. So he stuck it up McMahon's ass and made him change the name. And then Stanley put out his own Victory Magazine, which was funny. But the WWF magazine was Victory Magazine. And here's Don, and here's Superfly taking the leap over him on issue number 1. Not a lot of coverage, hardly anything at all of the Superfly matches with Morocco. And here's Superfly coming out of the cage in December 83's issue of Exciting Pro Wrestling Monthly in Japan. Great shot of Superfly. Superfly would also be on the first WWF magazine with this format. So no longer were the formatted programs like this and just a gatefold or 2 pages. The WWF, like their magazine, started their own program, and it kind of became a Joe generic program, sold all over the country at every arena, and you would get a lineup sheet, separate piece of paper on the side. I don't have one for this one, I think, because the program's inside. It would be inside is the gatefold. As time went on, or they sold them aftermarket, they would take the lineup sheets out and sell them without lineups, or they would get a separate piece of paper for them. When I get to one, I'll show you the paper. Superfly on the cover of Wrestling 84. This is the second issue from Wrestling 84. The other one was with Kevin Von Erich on it. This was a great magazine. Their attempt to make Wrestling's Main Event type magazine with the slick, glossy paper. Superfly on the cover. Okay, this is one of mine from Jersey. This is a separate piece of paper with the lineup sheet on it. And Snuka was taken on who here? Nobody. He wasn't. He wasn't on this card. So yeah, that's another thing I don't like. I mean, anybody could be on the cover, and it doesn't mean that wrestler is going to be featured at that show. And that's why I like the Garden and the Spectrum show. They always had it separate, and it was dedicated towards the guys who were coming that night. Not one magazine for the entire month and then changing it as it travels. I didn't like that. But Piper would take on Rocky Johnson. Backlund took on Cowboy Bob Orton here at Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is just about 40 minutes from me now. Not even. Superfly appearing on the very first issue of Victory Sports Magazine. Remember, I was telling you McMahon sued over Victory Sports, so here's the Victory Magazine and Victory Sports Magazine with Stanley Weston's. He had owned that all along. That's what his magazines were called originally. And who does he put on the cover? Superfly and Hogan, two WWF guys, when they were at this point banned from the magazine, from the ringside in the WWF, they would only be allowed a ringside for NWA, AWA independent shows. So it's great that they put a couple of shots on there that McMahon didn't want them to have. Another way to twist the knife in a little bit deeper. Superfly on the cover of Ringside. I pick up the pace a little bit here, just kind of drag it off these. April of '85, Superfly back on the cover, this time wanting Roddy Piper for their feud. Snuka, after the feud in the WWF, would take a hiatus to Japan. He would partner up with Bruiser Brody, and they would go after the first ever IWGP Tag Team Championships. And there was not the world, but not considered world until later on. So they would go really far. Snuka and Brody were a great team. I loved them. I have a bunch of their matches. I watched them a lot. They were a great team. They looked great together. They made it to the finals with Kimura and Dragon Fujinami. This is a picture from the finals. Brody comes off the top rope to hit Fujinami, blah, blah, blah. And Snuka gets rolled up and it's over. And new tag team champions or Kimura and Fujinami, but Snuka and Brody came really close. Brody was just about on his way out of New Japan and ready to come crawling back to Baba and the All Japan company. But it was cool because I'm more of a fan of New Japan, so it was nice to see Brody taking on Inoki and the guys in New Japan. And I wish they would have got the tag titles. That would have been cool. Superfly now getting older, and he makes his last little run in the WWF in November of '89, taking on the Honky Tonk Man. He would take on a few other guys. Here he's trying. He's back. He's here as a face, not as a heel. He's going to turn heel shortly after he leaves the WWF in late '89-90. April '90, Superfly Snuka flying higher than ever, and he was still put together, man. He was really jacked. Whatever vitamins he was taking at that point, he was still looking like $1 million. He would go on to the ECW 2 years later, and a year later after that, he would become the first ECW champion. But let's take a look at another man who does not get enough magazine coverage, and he certainly is a big enough name where he should have. Jesse the Body Ventura, starting out here, not much, none at all coverage of him before getting to the WWF. He had an AWA run. He was tag team champions with Adrian Adonis, and never really nothing mentioned of him. He went to Portland, and he's in a few magazines while he was in Portland, but his first appearance on anything major, and you consider this major, it's more like it's a company issue, main event from the Brendan Byrne Arena, Meadowlands Arena, Jesse the Body taking on Backlund for his first 6-week leg run in the WWF as a kind of a trial of a feel out to see how he would do in the Northeast. And obviously he did good because he got called back and everyone liked him. 81 December, and he's taking on Backlund at the Brendan Byrne. He would also take him on in 82 at the Garden. And here's Jesse's first match at the Garden. This isn't against Backlund, though. January 18th, and Backlund is taking on Adrian Adonis at this night. But Jesse's first appearance now, and Adonis is also a couple of months ahead of him when they came in 81, and they would all be back in 83 again. So Jesse's first major magazine cover is the match against Backlund at the Garden. That program we just seen, this issue here, is the match right here. And it is spring of 1982. Great looking shot of Jesse, and he's looking very much like an old Superstar Graham. And of course, Superstar's back with the mustache and shaved head by now. Another shot of Backlund taking on Jesse in the corner on PWI. This is May 82's issue and Jesse's first PWI. Jesse would take on Mr. USA Tony Atlas, September 82, in their feud. And I could still quote one of Jesse's interviews that we recorded on a tape recorder, by the way. There's no VCR yet. And we would just tape the interviews and listen to them talk and play it over and over again. And to this day, I memorize his exact promo, as you guys call it today, his exact interview word for word as he was taking on Tony at the Spectrum for the Spectrum match. September 82. And no, I'm not going to say it. Jesse on the first cover of a one of the new style programs for the WWF. This is issue 116. I believe this is a lineup sheet. Who's he facing? Hogan is taking on Wonderful Orndorff. Jesse's not even on this card. See, that's the kind of crap I hate it, you know? They have the guy on the cover and he's not even on the match. But here he is. But maybe in your town he was. That's how it worked, you know? Jesse, again, with Backlund, same match. So 3 covers, 3 of the same match. Talk about a real diss, right? I mean, the guy got nothing. Should have been on way more covers than he was. He was colorful, flamboyant, over the top, ridiculous. He had great skills on the mic and pissing people off. And he looked like $1 million with his dumb outfits. He should have definitely captured more magazine covers than he did. Jesse here talk, he's all talk or more action, talking about him now as an announcer so much as no longer wrestling. Does try to make a comeback, but the back injuries, I guess, has got to him too much. And he's here on the cover now as a movie actor, pushing the movie Predator with Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Wrestling's Main Event issue of October 87. His tag team partner was equally as dismissed as Jesse was, and this is Adrian Adonis, tough guy Adrian Adonis, New York Adrian Adonis, and that's the only one that exists in my house, my memory, and my existence. This is the only Adrian that there was. And May of 1982, Inside Wrestling taking on Backlund here at the Garden. Good looking shot of him on his first magazine cover. You would think he would have others. He did not. It's really a shame. Here he is again with Backlund in a corner, here with Bockwinkel on another cover in July of 82, taking on Hogan. A little more coverage with Bockwinkel and Hogan here. But I saved it for Adonis because he was just not on nothing. And when he is, he's on short corners, and it's really a shame. I hope I have all the other ones that I had planned on bringing with me here. You got to be kidding me. I don't have it? Yeah, I do. Okay. Here he is in Southwest Championship Wrestling. He left the WWF, and he's taken on Wahoo McDaniel in Joe Blanchard's Southwest Championship Wrestling. The rings covered a lot of that. They covered a lot of Bill Watts' Mid-South, territories that the bigger magazines didn't go to. The rings was always great for covering those spots. Same place, Southwest. Adrian taking on Ivan Putski on the Wrestler. They also squared off in the WWF as well, but this particular match is from Southwest, July of 1983. He would, like I said, team up in 1981 with Jesse Ventura in the AWA, and they would form a tag team. I forget, it was the East-West Connection, I think, something like that. Him and Jesse were a unique tag team, good tag team, definitely eye-catching, and they would capture the AWA tag team titles from, I believe, Greg and Brunzell in 1980. And this is AWA's souvenir issue program from the AWA's Major League and AWA's Territory edition. They sold, those magazines went in territories that were only sold in certain parts of the world at the time. They weren't worldwide, but you could order them in a back issue or have one delivered. But so they just weren't on newsstands. And their one and only magazine together is a cover of PWI, and it's a great looking shot. It's also a great looking poster of here at Bockwinkel with the belt. If you've never seen it, you know what? I'll show it to you if you want to see it. If this is the issue that has it. I have a couple. One's my readers and one's I have with all the posters. I'm not sure which one this is. I think it's here though, because it looks clean. It's gonna make a liar out of me. Oh, no, I got it. Older shot from the 70s of Bockwinkel with the brown belt, and cool looking shot of Nick here to go along with his magazines I showed earlier. I know the glare sucks, but you get the idea. If you're hunting down this issue, make sure it has the poster. Always make sure the posters are in them. Don't buy them without. You got to have it complete. The Wrestling's Main Event. Now you would think Adrian Adonis had won the NWA World Title, but no, look closer. It is the Southwest Championship Wrestling's World Title, which they try to make a world title out of it. They were on the USA channel in Texas, San Antonio, and they were reaching wide audiences before McMahon gobbled up the TV time from them. So they were trying to go global and make a world championship. He defeated Bob Orton in the finals excuse me, here's a Southwest Championship magazine / program with Adonis with the belt after winning it. Also has, if you look closely, it's Lou Thesz's world title from 1952 when he became the world champion, was carrying that world title. Lou presented that belt along with the new NWA style looking belt as the World Championship in Southwest Championship Wrestling's program / magazine. And real rare, real tough to find this one. There is a color photo in here also with him with the belt posing with it. So if you're looking for this, make sure the posters are there. And if you're looking for this one, good luck. Don't think they even exist anymore. Taking a look at Wrestling Monthly and a new wrestler, the rise of Greg Valentine. But before Greg Valentine was Greg Valentine, he was known as one of the Fargo brothers. And here he is as NWF World Tag Team Champions, NWF from the Cleveland territory, NWF, the one that would soon be represented in New Japan as Antonio Inoki's heavyweight championship lineage. December of 72 would be Greg Valentine's first magazine cover as one of the Fargo brothers, and his first cover is with a belt. Valentine held a tremendous amount of belts over the years. He held titles everywhere he went until the day he retired, which wasn't that long ago. Wrestling Yearbook 79, he was taking on David Von Erich. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. A lot of these have my signed autographs. I met Greg probably more than any other wrestler, and he was definitely one of my favorites as a kid. So I have a lot of stuff signed by Greg. I spent a lot of time talking to the guy. He's a real friendly guy. 79 Yearbook as Mid-Atlantic champion. The Wrestler, August 80, when just winning the tag team titles from Steamboat and Youngblood with his tag team partner, Ray the Crippler Stevens. This is covering their Mid-Atlantic tag team title wins. Again, so that's 3 covers, 3 champions. It's not showing the belt on the second one. He would become World Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions with Ric Flair, and then they would split off and have a tremendous feud. This is the Wrestler, August of 1980. Their feud would be bloody. Great looking shot of those two men after a war, May of 81, Sports Review. Again, a bloodied shot on the cover of the Wrestler, January 81. Valentine now heading to the WWF for the second time. He had a short run in 79 and took on Backlund, and he's back now for March of 82's issue for a more serious run with his manager, the Grand Wizard. 82, take on Backlund for the world title. They did the switcheroo with the wrong man getting his hand raised at the end. Both men wearing the same trunks. Both men had longer, blonde hairish, kind of longish. Referee was confused, and Backlund pinned Valentine, but raised Valentine's hand as the winner, confusing the two because they looked alike, and it would cause all kinds of turmoil. He walked off with the belt, but the belt was held up for 1 month. They had a rematch. Rematch is covered in March's issue of Inside Wrestling, and Backlund would win his title back. WWF, back where it belongs, the title rather, back where it belongs, and with Backlund. Cool little gimmick, something different. Valentine would have been a great champ. He was definitely worthy of it. Fantastic wrestler and underrated. Not talked about enough on a lot of magazines, though. He did well with that. Very first issue, Wrestling Main Event, June of 82, and it's that continued battle from the second match with Backlund. I said the date right, yeah, June of 1982, Main Event. Here he is with Rick Martel in October of 83, Sports Review. Also, Blackjack Mulligan at the top again in a bloody shot coming from Florida. Valentine taking on Roddy Piper once again in January 84's issue, which is an end of 83 time period, and this feud was wrapping up at this point of Valentine and Piper, so that's another great shot for both men. January 84. His big PWI cover with that robe. Great looking shot of February 84 with that purple. Taking on Tito Santana and winning the Intercontinental title from Tito Santana is Greg the Hammer Valentine. Again, covering the Tito win, both bloodied men. Valentine now destroyed Santana. And here's your only shot of him on a major magazine with the green belt. You're going to see a better view of that in a second on the next issue. September 85 Wrestling USA has got Greg holding up a title, and the wrestling program number 118. I'm not sure what the lineup is because it's inside the center, and it's got a great looking shot of that old Intercontinental belt. Really great looking close-up picture of that. I'm trying to find the exact. There is no exact date on it. I have to open it. Oh wait, I got it. This is April of '84's issue from Madison Square Garden. Taking on Tony Atlas is Greg the Hammer defending the title, and this is April of 1984. Great looking cover, great looking wrestling magazine cover. You know, you can see what these two guys are. You can tell a million miles away it's a wrestling magazine, and what's soon to be coming isn't. The magazine's changed terribly in the next 2 to 3 years. February now, 85. Valentine again taking on the cover, teaming up now with Brutus Beefcake and winning the tag team titles in the WWF. Your first and only look at them as champions on a cover. Ric Flair is taking on the fake Von Erich, and I believe we have a Von Erich movie dropping just another month from now. And actually was surprised when I seen the trailer. I thought it was going to this may be pretty good. I'm hoping for it, and fingers are crossed for them, man. August of 1980, and we're looking at now Tony Atlas for the first time. So that would be a wrap on Greg Valentine. He would go on to do some stupid shit later on, but he wouldn't be on any more magazine covers. And that was your last look at him in the WWF as a champion, rather. Tony Atlas now taking on his first magazine cover, August 80, Harley Race, and it's for the NWA World title. So Tony's first magazine cover, and it's going for the NWA title. Pressing Harley well over his head. He would be back on the bottom for his first PWI cover, December 1980, against Baron Von Raschke. And Tony is on the bottom there. Tony was such a super nice guy when I got to meet him, and gave me several autographs, and a couple of them for free. He didn't even charge me. It was really cool. I heard he was on some hard times now. It's a shame, man. I wish the guy good luck. He's on the cover of Wrestling News in the AWA now, and Mr. USA flexing the full body. This is your first good look at him on the cover of a magazine. So you can really say this is kind of like his first cover. And his next cover was a gushing blood one from the, I believe, April of 1981 Sports Review, and a good bloody shot here of him, how his injuries cost him the NWA title. This could have been from that Harley match, not sure, I've never seen the match, but great looking bloody cover for Tony, man, wow. Tony is making his Madison Square Garden debut December 1980. This is also autographed by Tony, and he's on the cover talking about the young muscle man, Mr. USA, coming up north. Would have a very good run up here for sure. Here he is taking on Ernie Ladd. Oh, I'm sorry. He's taking on Ernie Ladd for his first match here, by the way. So he's taking on the cat Ernie Ladd. Here's the program for it. Here's the match. He's taking on Ernie Ladd, covered in PWI. That's 2 PWIs for him in a row. It's pretty good. May 1981. Taking on the big cat when Ernie Ladd still had a couple of years left in him. Almost finished. His biggest match in the World Wrestling Federation would be up against Hulk Hogan, and there's a great shot of him press slamming Hulk Hogan, and this is now he's making it big time. PWI seem to like Atlas a lot. He's on them mostly all. And August 81, great looking cover, Atlas pressing the Incredible Hulk. Back in the NWA now with a new champion, Ric Flair. And I remember when I bought this issue, I was in Glen Burnie, Maryland, and I bought this on my way to Baltimore to do something. I can't remember but I remember buying this one off the newsstand, exactly where I was. It's kind of funny how certain issues bring you right back to that spot. You knew where you were, and couldn't tell you anything else, but this one always stuck out in my head. Fall of '80. Probably because it was like, wow, Tony Atlas is taking on Flair in the NWA. He was just in the WWF. That was the thing. You didn't know who was leaving and who was coming. They didn't announce nothing like that. So when you just stopped seeing somebody, that's when he was gone. But they were all like subtle exits. So you didn't know, even though he took off. I'm still planning on seeing him on our TV, and here he is in the NWA. Tony now on the cover of PWI Annual against Hogan. Another shot of him with Hogan. Here he is on a cover with Jose Estrada, who was one of my favorite wrestlers. I call them all wrestlers. Some people call them enhancements. Some people call them jobbers. I just call them wrestlers. He was another one of my favorite TV wrestlers who was, not always the enhancement guy or the build-up guy. But this is his first cover. Actually, no, it's not. Well, it's his first cover as Johnny Rodz. But it's not his first cover. His first cover is in 1971 when he's known as Java Rook, and he had some kind of like gimmick like the Great Mustifo or Tiger Jeet Singh, and a little bit of a la Sheik kind of a look to it, a little bit different, but a little bit kind of like that. And but he didn't stay with that long. Java Rook, I think this was autographed. I got a few autographs by Johnny. This is him and Captain Lou in '78. But and I got this photo when I seen him down in Brooklyn at Gleason's gym, because he was a trainer there. He used to hang around all the time. I'm guessing he's still around and doing his thing at Gleason's. But great dude. But Atlas Wrestling World taking on Johnny Rodz. This is also his first cover, and but it's good to know he was in the Hall of Fame for whatever that stupid Hall of Fame is supposed to mean. At least he's acknowledged, is my point. And they made a figure out of him too, which is even cooler. So that's definitely got more props than most of the other guys in his position. Tony on PWI Annual, again, spring of '84, flexing. This should have been a great cover of him by himself on that, but I'll take what we can get with Tony. Tony would go on to be World Wrestling Federation champions with Rocky Johnson, and they were known as the first Black World Tag Team Champions in the WWF, and the fans loved them. I loved them. I wish they continued on, but I guess inner problems were brewing, and guys just couldn't put things aside and just make the money and fame while you could. But Rocky Johnson pretty much on his way out. Tony had a couple of good more years left. He would go on to Texas and face some guys in Fritz von Erich's territory and win some titles down there. Before coming back to the WWF again and making an asshole of himself. Another one, just like Tony, Hacksaw Butch Reed, another guy highly snubbed by the magazines, and a big name that stuck out at the time and that should have gotten more publicity. And here's his first magazine cover, and it's a PWI Press Slam and Ric Flair. I think all these magazines with him are with Flair, and they're kind of like from the same match, which is, it's kind of bizarre, honestly. But they, another one, Wrestling Scene '82. Actually, this is, I think, '83 now, end of '82. That was August. Same match. I'm sorry, no, different match, because he's wearing the red trunks. The other two are the same match. So every magazine was with Flair were like 2 matches, and that was it. And it's really a shame, because he had a way more better bouts. He had some great feuds with Junkyard Dog and with Hacksaw Duggan, and nothing was even mentioned. Here he is again with Flair on wrestling's main event. Still not a real good shot of him yet, though. You really can't tell who he is or what he's doing or how good he's built. Taking on Junkyard Dog here in Wrestling Review, October of 1983. And very close to the main event cover is the Wrestling World cover, September '84. And who's it against? It's against Flair again. Now here's your first decent look at him in April of '85, and Hacksaw Duggan. Now this magazine's up to 115. It's going to go another maybe 10 magazines, maybe 8, and that's it. And it's going to be the end of anything mentioned from other companies too, which is a shame, because you're not going to hear about Memphis, you're not going to hear about Mid-South, you're not going to hear as much AWA. Wrestling News covered all that. It was a great magazine. It was cheaply made, but it was great for information. Hacksaw was back again. Ric Flair is also on the cover with a young Paul E. Dangerously when he was working for the mag. Is this when he was working for the magazines? No, he didn't start doing that until like '88 or '87. Issue 119, and here's a closer look at the Hacksaw Reed. And, of course, he would do a small WWF run, taking on superstar Billy Graham as the natural with the blonde hair. I guess, considering gimmicks of some, with like red hair, acting like an asshole with a rooster, Reed, I guess, got the better end of the stick for just going blonde and calling him the natural. don't know why you had to even do anything. You just leave him as Butch Reed. You didn't need to change Kerry Von Erich's name. Texas Tornado. I mean, he's Kerry Von Erich throughout the world. You don't need to change people's names, but, you know, that's just the control thing, you know. JYD, that would be it for Hacksaw Reed. Very small amount. It's almost a crime how little some of these guys were talked about, and I'm just glad to be showcasing them on this video here. And Junkyard Dog, we're going to take a look at. Talk about someone who was smoking hot moneymaker, filling up arenas in the Mid-South territory. And man, he got nothing in the magazines, not until he got up north, and it's really a shame. JYD here, though, in the Mid-South with the Mr. Olympia as the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, puts JYD on his first cover. And his second cover, Wrestling Review, and that's his first shot. I mean, it's, you know, think of all the covers you could have put for a wrestler. I would have certainly thought you could have gotten a better photo than this one. Something, but, you know, was a little bit more catchy. I don't know. September 83, JYD on his second magazine cover. Third cover, the Rings. If you notice, it's Rings, Reviews, and News. They're all the same company. They're all owned by the same person. They're the only ones covering this guy for the first 2 years. JYD on the cover, December of 82's issue of The Rings with an S. Finally making it onto an issue of Stanley Weston's magazines. Just a horrible blue background. Jesus, man. It doesn't really, you know, stand out too well. March of 84, JYD with his dog collar chain. JYD comes up, supposed to come up to the Northeast, sign with the Crockett territory or Memphis, and do something with Pro Wrestling USA, teaming up with Jimmy Valiant, and they were supposed to come to the Northeast for Night of the Champions 1, and McMahon stole JYD away and went to the WWF and pulled out of that card for Night of the Champions and left the Down South connection and left Bill Watts. So this would have been a cool tag team. It's too bad, like I said, Jimmy Valiant didn't come before, and those two team up. They would have been pretty cool in the WWF. But Valiant's, you know, kind of ran through the 70s in our territory, so it was a fresh face, him down south. So he had a lot of success down there. And August of 84's issue of the tag team that could have been. JYD back on the cover. Bob Backlund now no longer champion. July of 85, the wrestler. JYD looking like Savannah Jack from the UWF with that hat. And this is Sports Review, February of 1986. And this would be JYD's last cover. And just terrible with the dates. Heroes and Villains number 3. So that's going to put you like at 86 somewhere. April of 86 right here. So small. JYD on the cover, Wrestling All-Stars. And this is your last look at JYD on the cover of a magazine. Somebody who was really hot in the WWF, really hot in the UWF, Mid-South. Hardly got any coverage in the wrestling media, and it's sad. It just goes to show, like, he didn't even need it. I mean, he was, you know, he filled up arenas with his charisma and his action, and that's what made it work for him, and didn't need the magazine so much. Let's take a look now at the very last one, and that's a look at the Iron Sheik. And here's somebody who I just feel that people look at. He's like a funny thing, and they like to pick on him because the way he talked and the screwed up shit he would say on shoot interviews and fuck this guy and fuck that guy. And all that aside, the guy was a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal wrestler and an Olympian, and trained by Vern Gagne, and held titles everywhere, and especially in the the Mid-Atlantic territory. And up in the Northeast. This is his first magazine cover. It is, I want to say, January 80s issue of Wrestling Today. During a 79 match. Rare magazine, only in publication for maybe 3 to 4 years, and then it was done. Not even that long. It was, I think, just 2.5 to 3. But this is his first magazine cover. Another issue of Wrestling Today, taking on Antonio Inoki at the Garden, 1980, and another great shot. You can see those classic boots that he's got on here, and he would make 2 runs in the WWF in 79, take on Backlund as champion, and then come back again in 83 for the second. taking on Ivan Putski in June of 1980 Inside Wrestling. You wouldn't know it was him. You see just the bald head. That's the Sheik right there. Sheik in the Mid-Atlantic territory after holding several titles there. The Georgia title, Mid-Atlantic title. Same with Ivan Koloff. They may have been tag team champions. I know they were tag team partners. They may have been tag team champions. I'm not quite sure on that one. But two great friends that turned into great enemies in a bloody feud they would have in the Carolinas. May of 1981 with a very bloody Sheik on the cover, taking on Koloff. Sheik now with the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight title on the cover of Mid-Atlantic magazine, and it's just him with the boot and the belt. Good looking. You don't see this shot every day. While he was Mid-Atlantic champion, he's also the Canadian heavyweight champion. And for those who know the Mr. Bill story, here it is again. I don't know if I've said it before, but I remember I was like, yo, it's not 2006, it's 2007, so Sheik writes 7. I was like, oh, dude, forget it. So for the next one, don't put my name, please. But here he is with the Canadian heavyweight title. Great looking shot of the Sheik with 2 titles. Real stud, man. You don't ever see him with those belts, and it's just a cool shot of him with that. You never see him with the WWF belt either, and that was like his biggest one. Great looking shot of the Sheik with Dusty Rhodes, and return of the Outlaws with Dick Murdoch. August of 83, Sheik getting caught in the head with the old cowbell. Von Erich and Freebird feud brewing up top. The Sheik, I drove Bob Backlund out of wrestling. How about Sheik wins the WWF World title? Or how about Bob Backlund loses by submission to the Sheik? No, you get, I drove Bob Backlund out of wrestling. Does that tell you he's the new champion? Is that the way you present Bob Backlund after 6 years of champ losing? That's all you say? Awful. This should have been way bigger. It should have been way more advertisement, exploited way more. Fans would have been like, what? And grabbed it just because Backlund lost. Putting Kendo Nagasaki on the cover with Mike Rotundo. I mean, that's horrible. This should be switched around. Terrible for the Sheik's win. That being said, it's more than Koloff got. It's more than Stasiak got. So you can't complain for a heel getting it. It wasn't like it was Superstar getting it and he was splattered. But at least he got something. Yeah. He would be a little bit more presented on the main event, but not quite. This looks like a normal match. Iron Sheik, new WWF champion, defeats Backlund and MSG. If that photo was here with him with the belt, would have been way better for the Sheik. Way more eye-catching, and I think people would have gravitated towards that. But Sheik doing the nearly impossible. No one ever seen that coming. No one thought the Sheik would be the one taking the title, that's for sure. Totally took everyone by surprise. Sheik's first title defense is the Madison Square Garden program, defending the title against the new incredible Hulk Hogan, who's in the area for just 1 month now. Jumps in front of Backlund, because Backlund was supposedly injured and he could not get the return bout. Hogan gets it and takes the title. But issue 108 at the bottom of program here, Iron Sheik, the new WWF champion. And again, they don't show him with the World Championship belt. Why not? Great opportunity to put your champion on the cover with the belt, and you don't do it. I just don't get it. But fear not, because I got the Sheik for you with the heavyweight championship belt, and I made sure he didn't make it out to me and just signed Iron Sheik with no date. And great looking shot of the Sheik here defending the title, and one of the last appearances here before dropping it to the incredible one. It wouldn't be finished though. Sheik would move on, team up with Nikolai Volkov, one half of the former Mongols, and now World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions. And this is program number, it's not even on here. 125 up top. And lineup sheets inside. But here it is with Sheik and Volkov in 85. I don't have many more of these past 85. Like I stopped at 85 because I really didn't like that style program. But I stopped at like the end of 84 or the end of 85. I can't really remember. Well, no, this is 85, so it's at the end. So yeah, so end of 85 I stopped. Maybe I can show you those guys one time or another if I make a video for those, if anyone wants to see them, what they look like. Here's an opportunity, a golden opportunity drop to have all three world champions on the cover with their belts at the same time. Rock and Roll Express, NWA, AWA, the Road Warriors, Sheik and Volkov, no belts. What the F, man? Come on. This is your perfect shot to have the champions, just like you used to do in the 70s with the champions when they would have their championship belts. And talking about the champions, you leave, you know, one of the three teams without them. How stupid, man. That would have been cool. But another dropped opportunity. February of 1986, Inside Wrestling. Sheik would be on the cover of Wrestling World. June of 1986 against Mike Rotundo, taking on Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, and they would go back and forth in their seesaw battles with those teams back and forth through Mania and throughout before moving on to the Bulldogs. Ringside with Mike Rotundo again, taking on Sheik. Sheik now with the British Bulldogs, and Dynamite Kid on the issue of number 24, February 1986 of Wrestling Ringside. And finishing it off on this hour and 40-minute video, good Lord, is the Sheik with Corporal Kirshner. Who in the hell is Corporal Kirshner? Corporal Kirshner is Leatherface from the FMW. And then you're saying, who the hell is that, right? Yeah, exactly. Sheik on the cover, his last major cover of March of '87, and he would go on to the WCW shortly after this and be paid for an entire year and not even appear on television. Some kind of an overlook by corporate. There you go. All right, guys, this was an hour and 40 minutes on guys who were never featured very much, and some rise-ofs that you had asked for. I tried to make it all into one. I knew this was going to be a long one, and I hope you stuck with it and you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys on the next.